guess most generally the thing that's emerging as really interesting and different is recognition that non-conventional approaches to protecting human rights is kind of the way to go, whether that's things like the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, which is a non-conventional way for the UN to go about doing things instead of using, for example, treaties. That's the conventional approach. That's very interesting, but now it's also very interesting that there are non-state approaches. So we're talking about things like ISO 26000, which is a non-state standard, and well, actually the role of different human rights organizations that are essentially performing governance functions, but they're not the state, they're not the UN, they're not intergovernmental, but they are actually doing governance functions.
And why is that important?
Why is that important? Well, we've run up into a bit of a problem with use of the conventional approaches. The conventional public international law approaches require the consent of all of the countries before they become ratified and implemented. And what's happened is there's been a lack of enthusiasm towards doing that by states. So in the absence of the conventional public international law system working, these other techniques which kind of get around the failure of states to sign on and address these issues directly is working out pretty interestingly.
What are you working on right now that you're especially excited about?
Something called, what I call global social responsibility custom. So this is the idea that what is emerging as a result of the combination of these new instruments, be they the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights or ISO 26000 or various other things like that, is this fairly authoritative codification or statement of societal expectations of transnational business organizations. And what's really interesting is to see this thicken, become stronger, and it start to be used, for example, by courts, by governments, by various different market organizations and so on, as a way of evaluating whether or not businesses are behaving well or not well. That's kind of exciting.
And what impact do you expect that to have?
I expect it to have an increasing impact as time goes on, up until the time when the conventional approaches like a international treaty on business and human rights, when that is finalized, which probably will not be for many years to come, but until that time, this is going to be probably the main technique used for essentially keeping businesses in line.